Erev Tov Chavrim. I'm Stephen Benir. You're watching Israeli News Live, and this evening, friends, just before coming on air tonight, we have from Vocal Europe this very startling story coming out of Paris today. Don't know exactly what time this was. This, of course, being I think we are on May 12th, 2018. Yes, exactly right. But anyway, at 1:32 p.m., there we go. It's 1:32 p.m. earlier today. They're showing the video footage of the actual scene there in Paris, France. There, you can see the individual laying there on the ground after a terrorist attack, stabbing attack inside inside of Paris. There, people running away from the scene. I think they also show the video footage of the attacker as well, running in another clip here, and or it could just be the people running away. Not really sure. Actually, I don't know. That guy looks like he's actually carrying something. Let's just kind of back up and see. Maybe not. Not really sure as far as that goes there. Anyway, just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of this happening. Shalom to all of you guys, Jan and Arjan in Germany as well. Just happened to catch that as I looked over at the screen here. Going into other issues that are happening around the world, going to kind of look at a little bit of a prophetic side here just for a few moments tonight, because I ran across something in Jeremiah that I had not noticed before in chapter 9. But want to look at the news that has been breaking, and of course specifically in the Middle East Monitor. The Turkey says U.S.-Russia proxy war on Syria, a dangerous path. And, I guess it's kind of obvious. Everyone knows it's a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia. But to have an actual government official come out and say that is a little bit more convincing. In fact, I also seen an article today on a Russian news site claiming that the U.S. Pentagon is not telling American people how many U.S. soldiers have been killed inside of Syria. That the U.S. has been holding back on this. Pentagon releasing a statement that 60 soldiers had been killed in Syria and Iraq combined. But the Russian government is saying that as many as 200 American soldiers have been killed, including one attack that has never been reported that happened last year, where 12 U.S. soldiers were killed in an ambush. Not by Russia, of course, but the thing being is that, it kind of goes the same, both Russia and the United States. Russia also does the same. They will not report the true number of fatalities that their soldiers are facing in any given front. And I guess that's to keep the morale up of the people, because if Americans or Russians, either one, knew how many losses they were having, the people would be super outraged about what's going on. But it says here, Turkish Cultural and Tourism Minister Numan Kurtulmuş on Friday said the proxy war between the U.S. and Russia is a dangerous path to take. Speaking at Istanbul's Forum for Arab Journalists in Istanbul, Kurtulmuş said, "I am one of those who believe all problems, especially the Syrian problem, will be solved in the forces coming from the outside. Will be solved if the forces coming from the outside of the region stop and make calculations on the people of the region." Kurtulmuş said proxy war may lead to a great war in the world. Syria belongs to the people of Syria. The international community is obliged to start a democratic political process in which all parties in Syria are involved, he said. Kind of makes you wonder if this guy actually supports Erdogan from that type of statement there. I don't know, but he sounds a lot like he would not support Erdogan. With that type of statement coming out. So I appreciate his statement, and he's right about what he's saying. Don't know exactly, though, again, what does he fully stand for? I'm not really sure. Pentagon to keep backing Lebanon military despite Hezbollah gains. This is being reported by Reuters here. The U.S. military is committed to supporting and providing assistance in the Lebanese armed forces, the Pentagon said on Friday, despite the Iran-backed Hezbollah group and its allies making significant gains in parliamentary elections. I think that's kind of interesting because as we saw this huge Ro-Ro ship that docked last year in Lebanon, in Beirut, Lebanon, unloading a ton of military equipment over to the Lebanese government. I always believed that that would be used in a final push against Syria, against Damascus, moving in from the west, Israel and the Golan being from the southwest of Damascus. That would be a front there. We have the U.S., the Jordanians on the other side of the border there, with the U.S., the British, and the Germans there pushing from the south, the Turks pushing from the north, and of course U.S. forces at Al Tant, along with Norwegian forces there, would push from the east. All of them coming directly in on Syria's Damascus when that day actually comes. And I believe that it's not far off either. U.S. coalition kills 8 civilians in an attack, according to Archive News Neti.com, as also, if you just look at that name that way, says the so-called U.S.-led coalition against ISIL terrorists has killed 8 civilians in an attack launched on Saturday against a Syrian town in the south of Hasaka province, located in the northeastern Syria, according to the state television. In early May, the Syrian news agency Fury revealed that the coalition had launched another attack on the same settlement in Al-Hasaka, and that killed 25 civilians. The government of Syria, which is in the process of definitively ending terrorist and rebel groups, thanks to the help of its allies, has demanded the cessation of coalition attacks in the Arab country. All right. Now, it's kind of interesting as we see the things that are happening. Of course, I'm really thinking that something major is coming up in the very near future with the U.S., with Israel, and Iran. Whether it be inside of Syria, whether it ends up encompassing Iran itself, I can't really say how far that's going to go. But the reason why I am suspicious of this is because I am hearing, and I don't know if this has been confirmed as of yet, that the U.S. government is going to call a media blackout on those things happening inside of Syria. Speaking of media blackout, before we get into the prophetic side of this broadcast, also there is a new law coming out, a new UK law to jail commenters and sharers of hate content on Facebook. Even if you share it, I don't know what they entitle all the issues of hate speech, but I think it's if you say anything against the gay community or something like that. Freedom of speech is dying, right? And the longer everyone remains asleep at the wheel, the more rooted in thought police agendas become, as per the usual taking away of our rights is accomplished under the guise of making us safer. From what I understand as well, the European Union is also coming out with a law kind of similar to that. I kind of expected that in the European Union. It is a very much Vatican-controlled European Union, and so therefore you don't do much without their approval. Now, here's something I wanted to share with you guys, and I'm going to jump over to Joshua here. Let me just hit Joshua first, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss Jeremiah. Joshua, I just happened to catch a very interesting point, but Jeremiah chapter 9, I think, is clearly speaking about today's events. Not the first part of Jeremiah 9. Jeremiah goes into detail about how the house of Judah would end up becoming desolate, which was 70 AD. But his final statements at the end of the chapter is very, very much appears to be speaking about issues in the Middle East right now. We're going to go into that in just a minute. But I wanted to show something to you here that I never picked up on before myself. This is in Joshua chapter 5. Let's read verse 10 and 11, I believe it is. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. And they did eat of the produce of the land on the morrow, after the Passover's unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And the manna, wait a minute, that's not, back it up. A little further up, I apologize. And he raised up the children in their stead. Them did Joshua circumcise, for they were uncircumcised, but because they had not been circumcised by the way. And it came to pass when all the nation were circumcised, every one of them. Wait a minute, I must have been reading down or something. Aha, here it is. Here it is. In verse 6 is where it's at. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness. Now get this, till all the nation, now I think in KJV, you guys have got it as until all the people, even the men of war that came forth out of Egypt, were consumed, because they hearkened not unto the voice of the Lord, unto whom the Lord swore that he would not let them see the land which the Lord swore unto their fathers that he would give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. I've wondered, because he says, Kol hagoi anashe ha milachama, see, hayatzim, all right, that's talking about the men of war are coming out, but all the Goim, these men of war. You know, the reason why I bring this up, it just makes me wonder. If we go back and we look at Enoch, when Enoch talks about how that these Nephilim, who were the sons of the fallen angels, they were all men of war. They were doing what? Teaching the art of war. Well, in the case of Israel, we know they went out as a mixed multitude. We see that scripturally. Jude, as I brought out to you the other day, talks about how that they're basically, from what Jude is implying, they're actually sons of the Nephilim as well. And when I say not sons of the Nephilim from back before the flood, but they are new race of Nephilim. And I know some people think, oh no, the Nephilim all died out, before, during Enoch's time. Well, not according to the Bible that you're reading, because it clearly says after the fact that the Nephilim are still here yet today. All right, so we know that there's more to that than what meets the eye. But I'm wondering though, because here they are, God, he keeps them in the wilderness for 40 years till all the men of war are killed off, which is exactly the same type of spirit that was upon those men of Enoch's time, teaching the art of war. So I'm just wondering, because of what Jude spoke about, if that isn't the case. Well, I bring this up, and the reason I do is because we're still teaching the art of war. I mean, think about it. Is this maybe something that God has got to cleanse off this earth today, because all these people out there warring? And I mean, think about it. Think of for a moment. And I know that not everybody agrees with the Book of Enoch. It was in Qumran. It was part of the actually from Cave 11, which is considered the biblical scrolls. All right, and let me just see if I can pull this up, because I mentioned this to you guys before, and I just want to see if I can pull this up and see. Got to figure out a different way to do this here. I'm thinking that it was actually used. No, wasn't used that way there. There is a place, like I said, after that, and I don't recall which. Oh, maybe it's right. Yeah, here it is. It's right here. All right. This is in Numbers 13:33. This is for people that believe that let me pull it up in Hebrew for you guys so you can see it that way there. Because I know I'd have some of my Christian friends, of course, I'm a believer as well. Oh, I don't know what I did that for. That feel like that the Nephilim ended in Enoch's time. And so I said that I would actually show you guys where this was at. Let me find it again, Numbers 13:33. And you guys have got this as far as in the King James. I think it just uses the word giants, okay? But that's not what's written here. All right, but the men that went up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. This is the spies that are going to spy out the land, right? And they spread an evil report of the land which they had spied out unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have passed to spy it out is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. These people are cannibalists. Okay? And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. All right? Now, they actually, in the Jewish Bible here, they transliterate the actual word. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Enoch. All right? Enoch was a Rephaim, another form of the Nephilim. But clearly, it states it plain as day. See, ha-Nephilim. Et ha-Nephilim b'nei Enoch. And I told you guys, Enoch, we don't have a genealogy on Enoch other than his father, and that's it. How'd the man get here? Now, God says to the children of Israel, don't learn as the inhabitants of the land did, because what were they doing? They were learning how to pass their children through the fire and bring back more children. That's in Leviticus 18, Deuteronomy 18, both. All right? So the Nephilim were definitely here, and this is what Joshua and Caleb and the other 8 spies were seeing. They were seeing the Nephilim, sons of Enoch. They were giants. But Jude brings it out that they're no longer giants again. They crept in unaware. You can't detect them in their size anymore. But there is one key thing that we find out about who the Nephilim are, or their descendants are. Well, according to Joshua, if we're looking at it here, God had to take and allow the children of Israel to dwell in the wilderness for 40 years until those men of war, the Goim, Hagoi, literally Hagoi, Kol Hagoi, Anashe, Anashe, until all these men died off. These men of war. See? Milachama, which is, the men of war. They had to kill them all. They had to die off. And again, I stress this. Enoch said, and it's written, is that not written in Genesis as well? They were teaching the art of war. Maybe that's only in the book of Enoch. I don't remember right off the top of my head. All right, now, I bring this up for a reason. I was reading in Jeremiah, and in Jeremiah 9, you clearly see the prophecy of what would happen in 70 AD after the rejection of the Messiah. But when you get down to verses 23 to 25, I think it's dealing with today. And I'm going to show you why. But let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord who exercise mercy, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord. So God is a God of mercy. If you have that knowledge that God is a God of mercy, justice, and righteousness. All right? I'm not going and obliterating the people all around you. Behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord, that I will punish all them that are circumcised in their uncircumcision. All right? Now, that's a provocative statement. Verse 25. Egypt and Judah and Edom and the children of of Ammon and Moab, all that have the corners of their hair polled, that dwell in the wilderness, for the nations are uncircumcised, but all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in the heart. Do you realize what God just says here? All right, he says, I'm going to punish all, verse 24, all them that are circumcised in their uncircumcision. In other words, you might be circumcised, but you might as well be uncircumcised. Egypt, don't forget we overthrew Egypt, the United States did, to where we could put in our own puppet regime. Now we can do whatever we want. No doubt we send some of the radicals from Egypt over to fight along with the jihadists, the Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra Front. And Judah, that's from the modern leaders of the state of Israel right now. Edom, that's the Roman Vatican, for their influence in all of this ungodliness is happening. The children of Ammon and Moab, which, by the way, are the Jordanians. And that encompasses a large area of the Jordanian, modern-day Jordan. Ammon and Moab basically consist of the entire country of Jordan. And all that have the corners of their hair polled and dwell in the wilderness. Makes you wonder if that's not just all these different fighters they've sent into Syria. For all the nations are uncircumcised, but all the house of Israel, now notice this is not Judah now, this is the house of Israel, are uncircumcised in the heart. The verbiage speaks volumes, because the house of Israel became believers of Yeshua. We know this from just clearly looking at the biblical prophecy. When Jesus in Matthew, chapter 4, the Syrians, they ended up believing. Many of them did. We see that Ephraim, according to Isaiah 17, when Damascus falls, the fortress of Ephraim will cease as well, showing also that they had become believers of Yeshua. All right, the 10 tribes that are scattered, many of them European Union, many of them United States, Australia, all these different nations that are a part of what's going on in the Middle East. And we know that this saying that it's pointing to them to be Christians, because it's the Christian that knows that the circumcision is of the heart and not of the flesh. Whereas Judah is circumcised of flesh and not of heart. But the house of Israel, because many of them are Christians, they are uncircumcised in their heart. Now, you have to understand, when the prophecy comes out, that doesn't mean that every single believer today that is part of the house of Israel that lives in the United States or elsewhere around the world, that they are all in the sight of God as being part of what's happening in the Middle East here. But it's the prophet Jeremiah showing us. Okay, he's showing us who's involved in the ungodly acts that are happening. All right? And because God is a God of mercy and justice and righteousness, right? Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, I will punish all them that are circumcised in their uncircumcision. Egypt, Judah, Edom, Ammon, Moab. And those are all your launching pads. I mean, how many people even know that Egypt and Israel are working together over the Sinai? How many people know? And please understand, Israel's right to protect itself. I'm not opposed to that at all. You know, God, you know, he's not against anyone wanting to defend, you know, for us to be able to defend ourselves. Same thing with the United States. It's not wrong for the United States to want to defend itself. In fact, today we had Russia going into, where is it now? I have it up here somewhere. I meant to bring it. I don't know how I missed this here, because I did have it. Maybe it's just oh, here it is, right here. Another U.S.-led coalition. No, that's not it. I don't know. I had it up here. I don't know how I ended up losing it. Anyway, Russian bombers come into Alaskan airspace today, and the U.S. had to drive them out. You know, the U.S. has a right to defend itself as well against aggression. Doesn't matter who it is, you know, but just to go out there and attack other nations and overthrow governments because it's strategically good for us is not right. And it's the same for Israel, you know. I understand Israel's concern over Hezbollah, I understand Israel's concern over Iran. But I don't think that gives us a green light to just go out there and totally destroy Syria as a result. I understand Israel's concerned that Syria has Iranian bases there but the Iranians didn't attack Israel. You know, I know they got bombs marked with Israel and stuff like that. I realize all these things. I understand that. All right. So I do know the balance in this. And if there's a major issue that we have to confront as an Israeli nation against an attack that would come upon our country, I would understand that. I'm not against that. But what's interesting is when we look at the scriptural side of all this, of what's happening here, God is letting us know there's a lot of things going on that's not right. And God's not pleased with it. You know, not pleased with it at all. And this is what we got to think about. You know, and he names right here the countries. Edom is Rome. That's the Vatican. Judah. And that's mainly because Judah's become controlled by the Vatican. You know, we're under, you know, it's kind of interesting because God says to Israel, and I believe it's in Exodus chapter 6, that he understand, you know, he said, let me pull this up real quick. This is actually something I was looking at before I came on, and I was trying to search it out because I know that it's actually in other places as well. And it's just a verbiage in I think it is, no, is it Exodus? No, it's chapter 3. I think it's verse 6 is where it's at. It's where God talks about he remembers his covenant with Israel. And let's see, and I have surely seen, the affliction of my people that are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their pains. You know, and I was reading that before coming on the broadcast a little bit earlier, and I was doing research, and that's how I stumbled across Jeremiah here. But it made me think we're still under an Egyptian taskmasters, because the Vatican, the Roman hierarchy, is nothing but a bunch of Egyptians. And I've shared that many times before in the past, how that actually worked out. It's through Hadad, which is Esau's son, but he was raised by Pharaoh, by the Pharaoh of that particular time, very much like that of Moses. So, you know, we're really in a very peculiar situation in Israel, because Israel is still under the taskmaster of Egypt. And Rome is the one that is determining what happens on the political scene inside of Israel today. So it's very, very troubling what we're looking at here. Very troubling. Anyway, I just wanted to share these insights with you guys, and just tell you that we're in a very, very serious hour that we're living in. And this whole issue, though, about proxy wars between the U.S. and Russia being very dangerous, could escalate. And with President Trump talking about doing a media blackout on Syria, something is about to happen. And I'll be on this coming Sunday with Bonnie Harvey on Flashpoint on Hebrew Nation Radio. Those of you that wanted to catch that, you can catch that broadcast there. It actually runs live. I think it runs live. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's pre-recorded. I always forget how that works. But Syria, I think, is going to definitely be the flashpoint. It's where it's all going to go down. And very concerned, very concerned. Don't know how long it'll be. Don't know how big it'll get. But anyway, do pray for all the people in the region there. Pray for Israel. Pray for the Israeli people that do not want anything to do with this type of war that we're fixing to have coming. And also for the people in the Middle East. Many, many people. Many the American soldiers as well. And, you know, but all these soldiers, whether it be American, Syrian, Russian, whatever it is, these people are dying for what? For what? What are we dying for? It's terrible. For what? Anunnaki wars? You know, that's interesting because the Anunnaki comes from Enoch, who we just spoke about a moment ago. Yeah, we have Anunnaki today. And I think that's who's really running the scene. Somebody asked me who the Antichrist was. I said, well, I believe Rome will introduce the Antichrist, but I believe it'll be an Anunnaki. We'll have to see. I'm Steve Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Erev Tov. Don't forget to thumbs up the video if you like it, and share it everywhere you can. As long as we can, that is. Our freedom of speech will rapidly come to an end. Did we discuss that on here? Yeah, I already discussed that. We did discuss that. Shalom, shalom, guys. Good evening.